Hello, welcome to today's webinar on personalization and how to build engagement in an impersonal world. We're just going to hold on for just a few minutes to make sure that everyone who wants to join the call has had the chance to join us. So just bear with us for a couple of minutes. Okay, hopefully we've got a few more people on board now. I'll just give it another minute. Okay, so I think hopefully that's given everyone enough time to join us on the call. So welcome everybody, really glad to speak to you today. My name's Ailsa Bates and I'm the Director of Content and Brand at Exclaimer. And just to give you a little idea of what we do here at Exclaimer, we're the market leader in email signature solutions, and our software helps you centrally design and manage your email signatures company-wide for all your users. We've been in the business more than 20 years, and we have a lot of famous customers already, like companies like the BBC, Sony, UNICEF, Mattel, Volvo, and Bank of America. What our software also enables you to do is really target your campaign assets by adding them into those email signatures, so that every time your employee sends out an email, you're basically opening up a whole new marketing channel and taking advantage of those one-to-one conversations that are going on and really amplifying all of those campaign messages and important things you want to say to your users. So it's really tied into the topic for today's webinar. And I'd also like you to introduce you to Carol Howley, who will be speaking to us today. Carol is the CMO at Exclaimer. And she is a senior leader with over 15 years experience in the digital and technology space, and has worked for both established businesses and startups. She's got a really strong background in product marketing, brand development, and demand generation. And she's hugely passionate about building strategy, storytelling, and bringing products to life for consumers and driving growth. And her main specialities are creating operational strategies designed to drive business growth and develop people to be the best that they can be, and build outstanding marketing teams and building company brands. And she really thrives on chunky problems and driving real value for a company by delivering effective and efficient solutions that result in strategic development, behavioral change, and the increase in the bottom line, or all of the above indeed. She's currently working, bringing all those skills to bear for us here at Exclaimer, and I'm sure you're all going to really enjoy all of the knowledge she's going to impart to you today. So over to you, Carol.
Well, thank you very much, Ailsa, and thank you for the introduction. It's always awfully uncomfortable when you hear someone talking about yourself. So I'm sure no one was cringing as much as me, but thank you so much for the introduction. And, you know, obviously yourself coming from just as many decorated companies and just as much experience. So we'll definitely have to get some of your insights on the call as well today. So I'm here to discuss how I feel you can strategically build a focus on engagement and personalization. For me, it's really been a long-term obsession combining both brand and demand generation to create and build the mechanics of a marketing strategy that I feel is focused not just on customer acquisition, but on engagement and on retention. And it's something that I feel many marketers, especially in recent times, have realized is a really great way to focus their efforts strategically for long-term efficient growth. And I think especially in light of current economic circumstances. There's not many people who haven't cited issues with budgets, with challenges in recruiting, in acquiring new customers. And also, there's so many kind of traditional and modern influencers. You look on LinkedIn, you can see things all over the place in terms of, problems that we're all facing, whether it's, budgets through to kind of issues with GDPR, the way social media is being run, the way advertising accounts are running, the challenges in competition. So for me, it seems to be such a big area that we can really start to kind of ideally discuss today, but also see some opportunities to improve in. So moving on to the next slide. When I find my mouse, here we go. So I think this quote is really, really relevant. It comes from McKinsey's recent study, which is Next in Personalization. It's a really interesting report, actually. So the value of getting personalization for them, and also, I very much agree, that value is actually multiplying exponentially all the time. I feel that delivering that personalized and relevant marketing is more complex than ever, but at the same time, these customer expectations are growing. Customers are more aware than ever how data is being used, and there's so much more regulation governing and indeed restricting how data should be used. I think it's presenting such a huge challenge to personalize your marketing and really balance that data privacy, and also put the customer at the heart of business to respond, effectively and quickly. So I hope that this is something that many people relate to. So in this session, I'd love to explore how we as marketers can use every single channel we own to support growth and to build long-term relationships with our customers. I'm going to cover a little bit why I care so much about engagement and why it's really featured in every single OKR I've written for over 10 years now. I'd also like to detail some key trends that make it really challenging, I feel, to deliver those individual experiences and actually live up to the promises you make through your brand. Finally, we're going to share a few strategies that I feel have driven growth at the companies I've worked at, and also a perspective on when to invest in different channels based on the stage of your business. Hopefully that'll leave you with a list of tactics that you can employ today. And we'd love to hear in the future, if you have actually been able to employ any of those. We'll definitely be looking to check back in with all of you. So to build on Ailsa's introduction, at Exclaimer, we're lucky to be still growing really, really fast. We grew around 40% last year and expanded into several new markets. My team's standing up new channels. We're looking at paid social, ABM, a huge SEO focus. We've hired a new team of almost 20 people in the past year, which has been definitely no mean feat in itself. And we're also kicking off a rebrand and a website delivery. So we're not taking things slowly, really, in our team at the minute. Before that, I was at Canonical and Skyscanner during the hypergrowth and unicorn valuations. So I think for me, I've always worked on the B2B side of marketing, which has always been a big area, I think, for kind of long-term customer relationship building and really focusing on kind of customer success. As I said, I'd like to join companies that are at that sort of growth period, which for me is such an exciting time to join. But I think it's also one of the most challenging times to join because there's so many opportunities, so many decisions, so many trade-offs, negotiations, budget cuts. Budgets aren't as big as your growth plans. There's so many opportunities you're constantly kind of weighing up. And I know I'm constantly making trade-offs every single day to make sure that I'm not ideally sort of over committing my team and trying to simplify the chaos, honing in on what drives value, honing in on what can drive revenue. And it's a constant balancing act. So it's very, very exciting, but very, very challenging at the same time. So for me, I'm talking about a topic that is something I think an awful lot about. So growth marketing. And when I say I think a lot about this, my team can definitely attest that I think a lot about this. I'm constantly sending them ideas, notes, things on LinkedIn I've read, things that we can maybe try. I do need to sometimes simplify and take a step back, but I really do think a lot about this. Literally in the shower, out for a run, making dinner, it's quite a problem. And I don't think I'm alone in this problem in terms of marketing leaders. I know that there's so many things to do, so many things that inspire you, that make you think, there's so many opportunities to drive growth and so many different things you could do. But first, I think it's really important to level set on what I mean by growth marketing and how that relates to personalization. So ultimately, I believe you can't sustainably grow a business without a focus on your customers. I think that engaging your potential and current customers effectively is one of the biggest growth levers that's available to you as a marketer. And for me, as I said, it's all about sustainable growth. It's about working across the whole funnel to optimize, to improve, to really look at that kind of long-term advocacy and how you can really grow organic kind of customer lifetime value. But as you can see from all the things all over, that marketing is definitely not a walk in the park. So ironically, one thing that I often say is there's only 3 ways to actually grow a business. Let's see if this works. Yeah, it does. So you can acquire more people into your business. You can always attract more people, you can convert them, bring them into the business. Secondly, you can look at retention. You can retain them for longer. And then the third thing is you can monetize the people within the business more effectively, better pricing plans, better upsell, cross-sell, migration, better ways of engaging them so that they end up spending more. So it's just 3 little things that you need to do within your business that can help with your growth plans. So why is it so hard? And I really think that it's because so much has changed. Our industry and profession is almost unrecognizable from what it was 5 years ago, and certainly quite different from when I was at university going to business school. Even in the last year, the most incredible, exciting advances around AI, around all the different things you can do with advertising, the ABM capabilities that have come out, and all the skills that we now need as marketers to use them. I don't know a single CMO in all the groups that I'm a member of who isn't looking to their team to leverage opportunities that we didn't even know would exist 6 months ago. Even before COVID, advertising to and reaching customers was such a huge challenge. And now with the enormous shift to online, that transformation has accelerated so much faster. I think according to Mark Zuckerberg recently, he stated that WhatsApp was delivering over 100 billion messages every day. Google processes 3.5 billion searches. There's over 300 billion emails sent. If you just take a second to think about how much is happening, how much data there is flying around, how many opportunities there are to connect with people, how many different things you could be doing with that to drive growth. A few years ago, Forbes estimated that over 10,000 advertising messages are seen by the average person every single day. I love this billboard. I was actually in London at the time it came out, and I think it was one of the first that started to change based on the cars driving by, the average age of people. You know, the things that we can do to intelligently target and personalize to people is really exciting, and there's so many things you can do. But the level of competition in every industry is so fierce. I think this had a queue of people for like 10 months at, on the opening day, just of people wanting to be involved in this. It's so fierce. Customers are pretty much immune to the adverts. They hardly even notice them. And they're also really good at employing ad blockers, which really helps all of our strategies. At the same time, all these expectations have escalated exponentially. That's awful tongue twister to put in my notes to say. From web to mobile and in-person interactions, all your customers are viewing this personalization as the default standard. It's not seen as a nice to have, it's a definite have to have. And I'm sure so many people have experienced this shift and the impact it's had on us all. So I was going to just cover off a couple of stats that I think really highlight this shift. So 76% of customers expect these connected journeys. They expect you to deliver the experience. They also expect these brand experiences to be completely smooth, to be joined up, to flow effortlessly from the web to the app to the store, across all the devices that they're searching on, move through any kind of digital real estate that they're accustomed to using. The world ends up revolving around the customer more than it ever has done before. And all those trends that we see across B2C are coming into B2B and so much quicker. They want this full frictionless experience that follows them through their day-to-day lives when they're working. They also don't care whether it's sales that delivers a part of that experience or customer success or marketing. They want everything to flow and they want it instantly. All these expectations around experiences have evolved so quickly. At the same time as the sort of note that I meant earlier around value of data, that data no longer comes very easily with all the new legislations that differ by country. It compounds the challenges across this landscape. And I think customers, as I said, are very savvy with their data. I know I'm the worst person for my own profession by employing ad blockers. So I'm sure that many of you do the same thing. We're all very much more digital. We all understand what we're giving away when we tick the box to say you can use my email. And customers have very high expectations that the trade that they make in data will lead to very relevant customer experiences. And if you can't deliver that after asking for that email, they'll be very quick to leave and move on to the next person. So 81% of the people surveyed within the McKinsey or Salesforce survey, I think this was actually a Salesforce figure, so 81% have already taken that action to restrict their data in some way. So I think with all these incoming privacy restrictions that have been talked about for this year, those concerns are only going to get more and more challenging. I think a customer experience constitutes all of those interactions that they have with a brand at any one point in time. And any point of friction, as I said, really does start to help them take that jump to the next brand. So you've got to be incredibly good and very quick to manage it. But I think so many of us are finding that a challenge to keep track of all those interactions and to also look at our campaigns being very much omni-channel, not just multi-channel. So as I was saying, in today's instant gratification society, we can't wait for the data to reach the email provider or the call center. Customers want everything very, very quickly and very time sensitive. And so we need to kind of use real-time behavior to model things as much as we possibly can, even in B2B. So with all those great challenges, I was wanting to jump in and get a little bit personal. So by talking through some of the approaches that I've used and built into my toolkit and that I've learned from some of the people that I'm working with right now to successfully kind of drive growth that we've seen at our company. So number one, I really feel that the customers that achieve the best results approach personalization differently. You have to do it as a business-wide objective based on the desire to drive engagement, to make sure you're putting the customer at the heart of your business, you're communicating with empathy, you're really focusing on delivering value. According to LXA, which is the MarTech Alliance, they recently did a State of CX report where they said that 72% of CMOs agree or strongly agree that an amazing customer experience provides a powerful competitive advantage. And to back that up, 64% of those people said data compliance, privacy, and ethics are vital to achieving that customer experience success. So how on earth do you do this? Well, luckily for us, we have a great customer success team that we work with really closely, but it's really not their responsibility, it's everyone's. They may have it in their titles, but it's actually everyone in the business. We ensure that we have cross-team working groups to discuss what's happening across our activities, to make sure we're mapping funnels, that we're really doing those handovers as well as we possibly can, to see trends, to learn from what we're doing, what's working, that isn't, making sure that we're always improving and connecting those experiences. We also have a massive focus in Exclaimer of asking for feedback as often as we possibly can, and also responding to it, not just privately, but also publicly, and making sure that on review sites and other areas that we really quickly do respond and take action. I think that's had a really good impact for us, and we've had some really great results recently from our ratings across things like G2, where we've got great amount of results, and it's placed us among the leaders board, which has then in turn ended up driving a huge amount of growth for us. So a quick sip of water. I think things like G2, Capterra, Trust Radius, they're an amazing opportunity to really work with and build a partnership with in the way that you would have done previously with analysts, especially for kind of companies like us with quite a low average selling price. You know, the software is actually very, very cheap, but we're actually you were selling a lot at high volume. So we want to make sure we offer a really good experience to people, even though there's a high volume of customers. So as I said, customers really need to be the focus of every department. You know, it has to be the product that care about it. It has to be marketing. People see through the brands that don't deliver on the things that marketing promise. So it can't be a measure of an NPS survey every quarter or every 6 months, but a conscious strategic focus across the whole organization. So point 2. Leaning into data and analytics. I'm sure you're all sighing heavily. I'm definitely not saying anything that you haven't heard a million times already. And I can assure you, for me, I'm on the data-informed side of the fence, not data-led. And a career in marketing operations would have not been the best career that I could have taken. However, I do believe that prioritizing investments in data and insights is really critical to making your business nimble and resilient in the face of seemingly constant change. As we saw earlier, people's expectations are really high. The power's in the hands of the consumer. Data privacy's shifted its focus. It's more important than ever to update your strategy so you continue to be relevant and you can measure campaign success to understand what people really want. Having an integrated tech stack enables brands to gather that customer data to understand the flaws in the customer experience. And that then enables you to use that same data to flow through the company in real time to get to where it's needed so that it can be actioned. People, I think all businesses, and it's something we're definitely investing in at the minute, but all businesses need a dedicated insights and actions engine that can manage all these models, this attribution, the insights, really look after sort of understanding that data so you can focus the experience needs across the customers that you have. I think also using predictive analytics and machine learning is a really great way to ensure that you're always listening and also take advantage of doing things that you can't do with people and to really kind of accelerate that growth that you can have across different tooling. So we all know what's possible. Customers expect it. We want to deliver it. But there are a lot of things stopping us, which is making it really challenging. I think one of the things that's definitely causing those issues and stopping us is this wonderful busy slide here. I know that I think it was about 2010. I actually went to San Francisco to one of the conferences, and I remember the slide had like probably 10% of the people on it. There wasn't quite the same amount of marketing technology and sales and SaaS providers that there were, but now there's an explosion of companies. I think there's over 10,000 businesses on here. And every year it's got slightly smaller. Now we're down to just icons. So to truly deliver those personal experiences, you've got to look at what tools you can choose from all these plethora of different ones. Understand how to use them, how to connect them. You need to enrich everything with third-party data. You need to look at demographic, psychographic. How do you understand everyone? How do you tie all this in? How do you then make all those insights actionable across your MarTech stack? It's really challenging. And I think there's no one here that wouldn't hold their hand up and say they've got it sorted. We definitely haven't. It's something that I've never managed to achieve in all the companies that I've worked in, but we've definitely seen improvements from just kind of constantly having it as a focus to make sure data and analytics are what we want to kind of deliver going forward. I think for us, we're presently using a number of tools to kind of match intent and start to tie that into our customers so that we can really reach out in a timely manner to prospective customers that are in market. So, the third point, scaling the right performance marketing. I think the most important point here is making this relevant to your brand and your company or your stage, what you do, how it works, also what you're good at. I think one of the things we forget to do in marketing is to kind of really focus on what we're good at. Some companies are great at events. Some companies are really good at data or technology or emails. You can't be good at everything. So sometimes it's just really good to play to what you're good at that works within your audience or your category or your strategies as such. So Exclaimer, we're a scale up, which means we're growing really fast. We're investing in our growth. We're looking at expanding the company. So performance marketing is hugely important for us. We're also B2B, so we definitely skew more to things like LinkedIn, to Twitter, to Google. We use other social media options, content advertising, content syndication advertising. We look constantly to kind of test, learn, measure, and optimize and try to tie everything together, as I was mentioning before. We're always looking at best uses of intent, how we can run different campaigns. But I also consider performance marketing to include a number of channels that spans more than just your paid advertising. I think things like earned media are really important when you're looking at getting stories placed in the right places. We always try really hard to target our kind of key accounts and the way that we want to attract the media. So things like TechCrunch, getting stories placed within them. As I mentioned before, GT is a really great area for us to kind of look at working with and making sure that we can kind of utilize within our performance and paid activities as well. You can do all kinds of great tools, such as working with, different communities, getting features on things like Product Hunt, running a Quora community. They're great tactics that I've looked at in different companies that have worked incredibly well for us, that aren't just your traditional kind of use of PPC or paid social activities. So with our resources, I've always got to remind ourselves that simplifying is the way forward. And it's really hard when it's tempting to kind of do everything and play with every new tool, but we can't do everything. And we have to remember our resources are finite. So we have to focus on what will drive revenue within the quarter for our activities. And then, we can have a great plan to look forward in the future, but very much kind of tying things in what we know will work. So number 4, we're heading through this. I hope everyone's still bearing with me. So number 4, I think, is a really, really important thing and something that Ailsa definitely knows more about than me. But one thing when I came to Exclaimer was to really build an engaging and value-driven content engine. And when we met, Ailsa told me a huge amount of things that I didn't know about content, how to really build and utilize it and how to make sure it went across every channel and to tie your teams up together. And I think she's really building that beating heart for our team, which is amazing. But building that content engine, I think, is the vital thing behind driving success for your business. I remember watching a State of Demand Gen episode, which I've actually put a video into this presentation, which may or may not work, but I'll tell you the basics if it doesn't. So it's a guy called Chris Walker, who you've possibly seen. He runs a State of Demand Gen podcast, which is actually brilliant, along with a number of others that I'd be happy to share, some of the reading that I really like and encourage the team to do. So Chris runs Refine Labs and is a big advocate of demand generation. He famously scaled his business through LinkedIn and content. And in this video, which I borrowed from an interview he did for Typeform recently, he shares how important content is for him. So we'll see if this works. Always a risk. Never work with videos or children or animals, I think, is a good motto. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to work. So never mind on that one. I'll give you a brief overview. So what Chris talks through is he really talks through that he doesn't care how many times people see his posts. He doesn't care how many times they listen to his podcast, how many things they do, so that everything that he does is just designed to kind of give a consistent message across all the channels to really kind of ensure that they do. He knows that people probably consume 4 or 5 different pieces of content. They probably watched 6 or 7 podcasts before they actually reach out and talk to him. And he's got that feedback from people that have come in. So he's talking about how it's just been really consistent across all of your messaging points, all of your touch points, having a really clear strategy of what you want to say and making sure you always offer value to people. And I'm sure you can Google sort of Typeform and Chris Walker, and you'll be able to find the access to the video. But it's an amazing video, and do follow his podcast. Definitely not a subscriber or paid to mention that, but it's certainly something that helped me a good few years ago when I started moving into demand gen. So as Chris says, every element of content and consistency is kind of what drives your brand and its messaging, because eventually your performance marketing does end up plateauing and you can only optimize your account so far. And at some point you will start to see diminishing returns if you just focus on those short-term tactics that get your leads in immediately. You don't leave yourself with any gas in the tank for the longer term. So the opportunity for all businesses, in my mind, lies in building that strong brand, building a strong content strategy, and having a clear point of view and always adding value. Great content adds value for the people it educates, it inspires them, it helps them solve their problems, and it makes them want to take an action to have a relationship with your brand. So we're definitely, as I said, moving towards that. And I think it really important to bring out your personality as a brand and make it human. So it's definitely a work in progress for us, as I said, and something that I think is having really good results already for us. So I hope everyone's holding up. I'm just about holding up, but we've got one more point to make, so a quick sip of water. So final point, diversifying your channels. I think this is a really important point. You start to get to the point where things start working. For us at Exclaimer, we really found that PPC was working for us, and we definitely had increasing targets. So as targets increased, as we had the focus, we had the pressure on, we just kept doing more and more of the same thing. It happened as well when I was at Canonical. We were doing amazing amounts of content, but we didn't invest in anything else. We didn't invest in our brand. We didn't invest in, paid activity. We had great content, great on-site, engagement, but we didn't convert people because we never focused on really improving our site. The same for Exclaimer. There was a number of things that we did. So we very much were tied in kind of a hamster wheel of doing the same thing without enough tactics to kind of really spread. And I think it's a hugely important point to make, especially when you look at advertising, which we were very much tied to. When you look at GDPR, when you look at privacy, when you look at every channel going a little bit TikTok crazy and video being such a massive thing, when that performance marketing starts to plateau, you're going to be stuck and you're going to end up having, rising costs and diminishing returns. And that, obviously doesn't please investors and doesn't leave you in a good position. So for me, it's all about investing in the longer term, which has to be built around your brand, around your content, has to be making sure you're consistent, recognizable, and you have a clear point of view. Now, one thing I wanted to share, we're hugely fortunate to be part of Insight's investment portfolio. And that means we get to work with them on research and we have access to some of the tools and trainings that they offer. So recently they did a state of demand generation survey, which was really interesting. And it was really digging into, how do you prioritize your investments? How do you build your budget models? What's your data readiness? What could your growth models be? How do you kind of really prioritize your channels by business stages, which has helped me to plan out and understand how to make investments in a clever way across our kind of activity that we're doing as we're growing the business. So this slide's really, really busy, apologies, but it has a huge amount of data. But a couple of things I wanted to draw your attention to is on this side here, you have 5 tactics: so SEO, content, email nurture, paid digital, and events. I'm classing virtual and in-person really together in this sense. But these are what are seen by, so this is a survey, sorry, I forgot to say, of all the companies in our portfolio. So mostly SaaS B2B companies is probably kind of the biggest indexing, to be fair. So those 5 tactics really are mature tactics. So that means that over 75% of the companies that are in our portfolio have established programs. It's probably very representative of a lot of companies now, especially in tech and SaaS. And so if you don't have those programs set up, you're behind the vast amount of your competitors. And it's certainly something that you need to, because the people who haven't got them completely set up have them, reasonably well, and they're ramping investment in them. So, you're going to need to compete in these areas. They are the table stakes, they're the expected channels that you have to deliver results in. So it's really important to kind of call out that they actually are the things that you should be doing and that should be part of your kind of marketing mix as your baseline. Well, it's interesting to look at kind of ABX or ABM and partner. It shows kind of around 50% adoption, but very few actually have established programs. And a majority of those who have not yet adopted are planning to test. So that's definitely an area that people are seeing really good success. People have noticed there's good success. So they're starting to move into making sure that they do these. I think especially ABM for us is definitely a new area, but one we're really looking to do. Partner marketing, we've got a good program and we're definitely looking to scale in that area. So it's, it's a really good area to kind of look at if you haven't looked at already. I think for us, analyst relations and peer reviews, I think definitely peer reviews is something that we're ahead of the curve on. I think for a lot of companies, you can see here, though, it's a missed opportunity where 27% are not even planning on testing or investing in getting those reviews out and getting engaging with communities, engaging with other people, making sure you can really leverage the kind of ecosystem that you operate within, which I think is a really big opportunity. The final one is referrals, community, direct mail, and podcast. There could be some real gems here for people. They do show low adoption currently, with high interest kind of people. So I'd see these as channels to test and learn, probably be selective. When we talk about simplifying and focus, it takes probably 1 to 2 years, really, really to scale and do effectively a particular channel. So you probably want to, scale back, think about which one do we go for out of those and what will work for us. And I guess sort of tailing on the end and not looking too popular, you've got out-of-home ads, traditional ads, and email lists. I know I'm definitely not a fan of email lists, but some people do use them. For us, probably we wouldn't look to invest in those, but that's a very, very quiet space. So maybe it's a good opportunity for people to consider investing in if that works with your business model. So for me, this was a really interesting way of looking across all the different companies that we have and really starting to understand what people are definitely investing in, what really needs to be the basis of your strategy, and what you can look at doing in the future and going forwards. So that takes me to what tactics and what things could you do? So as I mentioned at Exclaimer, and it really would be a little bit remiss if I didn't give you a quick overview, and I also mentioned it earlier. So we always look at using every channel open to us within our remit. We're a scale-up, but that doesn't mean that we have loads and loads of money to spend. So we're really, really clever with our money. We make sure we utilize every opportunity to use free, to use owned, to use earned, to leverage kind of networks, to leverage people we work with. I'm a huge advocate of owned channels, and I think they're often overlooked for the opportunity of kind of paid and even earned ones that you could look at earlier. So we've been focused on drinking our own champagne in marketing, which I much prefer as a term to dog fooding. I have to say it's been one of my least favorite terms since I joined TaxSAS about 20 years ago. I hadn't previously used email signatures before starting at Exclaimer, but in my view, it's something that was always a real challenge for me and something that I always had frustrations organizing. And I also think if you're selling something, you need to use it to really, really understand it properly. So we've been having some great results integrating our signatures into our demand gen campaigns, running them across the company. We've been driving meeting bookings with our SDRs, getting some really great ratings in really quickly for our CSAT team, and also kind of running some great internal comms campaigns. So it's been a really good exercise, I think, for us to really understand the value so that we can make sure that we're using everything that we do, and we've seen some huge opportunities. So obviously we'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. So I will move quickly on. And as Ailsa mentioned, we've got around 50,000 companies working with us and using it. So, definitely an opportunity, definitely kind of a new area, I think, for people, but a real opportunity potentially to leverage within your company. And so to recap, the strategies I've found in the companies I've worked in recently that build engagement involve putting the customer at the heart of your business, ensuring you invest in data and analytics, making sure you scale the right performance marketing for your company, for whatever stage you're at, building a content engine to be the beating heart of that company and also to strengthen your brand. and also diversifying your channel mix to drive growth. You can't invest in every single channel, but you need to have a broad mix to make sure that you're really able to kind of rely on other things. As things dial up or die down, you can rely on different things. So they're the kind of tips that I wanted to share. And I'd love to hear any thoughts and questions. And also, if you're able to take any of this away and utilize it in your own strategy, we'd love to have any feedback or to hear what you do.
Thanks, Carol. That was fantastic. Really, really interesting. I hope everyone who's on the call got as much out of that as I did. It was absolutely fascinating. I do have a couple of questions to ask. So why don't we do that straight away? I think one of the questions I had straight away was, you talked about channels just there. And what channels do you think marketers can consider using to boost those personalized marketing efforts that they just might not have thought of before?
Yeah, so obviously we kind of mentioned the possibility of using email signatures, which I think is a really great opportunity. I think there's other things you can do as well. At your website, there's been some great focus on kind of conversion activity, that people hadn't really thought of before. You can use tooling to serve up an experience to someone that's actually relevant to them as they land onto your site, especially people that where they're coming from, or really changing things. So I think being able to do that within your campaigns and your adverts is really, really important. And also kind of enables you to make everything personalized to that sector or that vertical or that person. So that's one thing that we've been using, and there's a huge amount of tools that you can use to do that. I've got definitely a couple of favorites, but that's a really great opportunity that I think is something that we've not really looked at before in terms of boosting our marketing activity. And then around kind of the ABM activity, if you're really targeting people, you can really hone in on the value that's relevant to them, and expand those accounts and start to kind of have that really exciting use of multi-threading to speak to different people at the company and give them all the different use cases across the board. So that's something that I found really exciting.
And you mentioned a couple of tools. Do you have a, you said you didn't want to mention your favorites, have you?
No, absolutely. So we're currently testing out and using Optimizely within our kind of personalization activity. Personally, before I used a company called Mutiny, which I really enjoyed working with, and they were really, really good as well. So definitely both tools that I think are really fantastic for delivering that experience, and just personalizing things and making them relevant people really drives your conversion rates on site.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think particularly for ABM activity, it's just absolutely crucial, isn't it, if you want to target that customer. So just thinking about that, that personalized marketing, what if we're looking at a startup company that's maybe not got a huge amount of resource? What do you think they could do in a smaller way to really take advantage and personalize what they're doing in a way which is going to reach their customers?
Yeah, so there are lots of things that you can do. Obviously, a number of people are experiencing the problem of budgets being cut as well. So, having to work more with less. I think, coming from sort of startup marketing, you're always going to have to be creative. You're always going to have to think of what you could possibly do for free or nothing or less than nothing. I think for me, growing up in Skyscanner was quite a good experience because, we were a Scottish company and we kind of had the motto that we'd build everything, we'd do everything, and we'd solve everything ourselves, which wasn't always the best situation. I can highly recommend not building the Death Star of an email CRM platform, and actually probably using HubSpot or Pardo, Salesforce, any other option than building it yourself, because people have spent years trying to do that for a reason. So that aside, you can do some great things. As I was saying, like own channels, making sure you offer a really great consistent brand across your website, across every touch point, investing in things like your content, your SEO, adding value, not throwing away kind of just awful clickbait kind of content that doesn't really come across as authentic and, and genuine, I suppose, across all your activities. Really leveraging your staff. I think you can have an enormous multiplier effect if you leverage your staff and ask them to share. We're trying really hard to work with our teams to sort of say, a couple of things that you could share this week, and helping them understand how to kind of share. And if you think about all the people that your staff know, and then all the people that they work with, and all of that sort of huge multiplier effect is an amazing opportunity to kind of really leverage. And I think few companies do that as well as just go and spend money on paid, which doesn't have the same results. So that's one thing I think is a free opportunity that you can do, and set your staff up really well. And then kind of working with other companies. I mean, who could you partner with? Who could you work with? Every company is struggling to grow. You know, you can look at doing joint events. You can look at kind of working with communities, supporting people. How can you kind of get out there that actually builds a network and gets people kind of knowing and trusting you, especially when you think so much is shared in the dark funnel that you can't necessarily see or track quite as easily. So, you know, it's actually getting out there and being at the point where people are sharing and talking and remembering you. You know, a lot of people be, you know, rather than you might sort of track something. I remember one of the biggest mistakes I made was doing a campaign where we sent a load of brownies out, and obviously, you know, sending brownies to people with dogs. Ailsa, you've got a dog too. Great, because everything that comes through the letterbox gets eaten. You know, things like that. You never know. We'd track that as, you know, they came in because of that direct mail campaign, but actually that was a terrible idea. But they would come in and they say, actually, you know, you did send me this, and, you know, my dog nearly died. But actually, I saw you on a webinar, and that webinar was really, really interesting. And actually, that's what inspired me to do. Or, you know, not necessarily, we might have tracked they clicked on an email, but actually they clicked on that email because they'd seen it as at an event, or they'd seen a post by one of the sales team. They're like, oh, I really like that company. I believe in what they're doing, so I trust them. So, you know, really optimizing that kind of that free opportunity to kind of with your own work, just leverage your channels. I think is a great option.
Yeah, and I think it's that multiple touch points, isn't it? That's so important. And I think going back to that point you made about sort of really holding strong to the brand as well, so that they are seeing the brand at every point that they might have seen you. It's always feeling consistent, and it's always expressing that message, so that you can build that trust and they do recognize you the next time they see you.
Also, when you started, I always remember when you joined, you kind of taught me through the best ways to kind of leverage your content, how you should always make your content relevant in multiple markets. I don't know if there's anything you want to say around that, because then that's a great opportunity for saving money.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think probably one of the key things I think about sort of content, and I do think it's really, really good for startups, for companies where they don't have a huge marketing budget. To me, it's that kind of bootstrapping approach to marketing, where you're really trying to give value. And I always think the most important thing about content marketing is about being generous. So you want to give of your expertise and make that really clear to the marketplace, and try and put it in all the places where your audience might be. So that's across your organic social channels, and really encouraging, as you said, that situation where you're trying to make get as many people to share it as possible, whether you're leveraging your own network, your employee network, but you're getting it out there so that more people can see it. And sort of, it's almost like casting a net out onto the internet, isn't it? And trying to draw those people towards you with that sort of the sort of expertise that you're showing them. And then once they come into your website, that's the point at which they hopefully you can show them some more content as they come in that's equally as relevant to the topic that they're looking at or they're interested in. And then gradually they start to trust the brand, and you can start to push them into other areas of the website where they may actually look at your product and that kind of thing. And again, to your point about being consistent, I think that is so important across all those touch points. And to me, content isn't just the blog post. It's how that's expressed on social. It's how the customer success team talk to the customer when they speak to them, how the phone is answered. It's all those touch points. And in a way, it's all content. You know, even the event stand is content. You know, what we choose to put on there, what we choose to showcase, the leaflet, it all needs to be consistent right across that piece, that omnichannel point. But in a way, it's all content, you know, and being really generous with all those points you have to make so that people want to talk to you. You know, that's kind of where you want to get to. And trust is just so key, isn't it? So being generous allows you to generate that trust with the people who are talking to you. I thought it was really interesting, that point you made about the YouTube video that we almost saw, that he was saying it was 6 to 7 podcasts, you know, that people were actually looking at before they actually came to him. And that's the kind of information, like you were saying, that you're never going to see in the dark funnel because you can't see it. But you can ask them that question when they arrive and find out how many touch points it was and how many things they actually looked at before they talked to you. Because I think that's quite a common customer behavior these days, you know, that they actually they're at the edges and they're looking at things you're doing before they choose to talk to you, because they know once they speak to you, potentially there's a floodgate opening there, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's also a trend in buyer behavior that we've seen. I know there was a fantastic Salesforce survey this year actually, that went into kind of how many people, you know, how much research is done before people talk to a salesperson. And there was over 80% of people said that they relied on content and they relied on the internet to find the information about the software, to do their own research, to look into content, to look into kind of reports, survey sites, everything, do all of that research. And I think over 90% of those people said they wanted more content, but more good content, not just new content, the good stuff that really gives them the information. And then when they come to the sales team, and I know our sales team have often said, they come and they're like, I've done my research, I've spoken to these people, I've spoken to you, I've looked at you, I've read your reviews, and you're the one I choose. And the sales team are regularly finding that, because when we ask them, what have you done, what have you evaluated, they're like, my decision's made, this is what I'm doing. It's an interesting trend. And I know I do it because I'm probably the worst person for the what I'm trying to sell into, because I do my research and I make my decision and then go and pick the brand that I want to do and then do a few demos, but generally I've made my choice on my own.
Yeah, I think it's really common behavior now. I think we're like, it's interesting the point you were making earlier about the sort of data now, where we're all so conscious of our data getting out there, and once you fill in the form and actually request that demo or to speak to the sales team, that at that point it's open. So you want to have made the choice beforehand, and I think content is a really great way to do that. I think it's also a really great way to point out the problem that the product solves as well, in a subtler way than a very obvious advert, and it allows you to come at the problem that the product solves in multiple ways. It's almost like a spectrum that you can cover to sort of pull people towards you and get them to notice that actually they do have this issue and this product may actually solve it. So I think that's a really interesting way that content can help as well. So one of the things I wanted to ask was a question about the sort of traditional model of marketing. And do you think that personalization means we're moving away from that traditional model of sort of let's just acquire as many MQLs as we can? And if so, sort of what metrics should we be looking at instead?
So I think anyone that knows me will know I have a very strong opinion on MQL and gathering MQLs, and I've tried to kill them in most companies I've worked at. But maybe I'm not the best person to advocate for MQLs, but I think for me it's kind of looking at, I want everyone to focus at, and I want to kind of look at what's kind of the long-term business growth, what's the long-term kind of revenue impact, what's the kind of marketing source revenue, and what are we doing across the every touch point that ends up driving revenue for the brand. I don't think, just having leads and MQLs is a great way of kind of seeing your success. Obviously there's leading indicators and there's great indicators that you can look at across your website, across PR, across your share of voice and what people are saying about you and your engagement growth. But I don't necessarily love the reliance almost on MQLs as a measure of success, especially for marketing. And I also think, if you do marketing well, you're not stopping at an MQL measure. You're moving across the whole funnel. You're taking people, through that relationship with sales, through that relationship with kind of customer success, through their quarterly business reviews, asking them to kind of give you customer stories, to be part of a roundtable, to be on your webinars, to look at how you can kind of work together in the future and how you can have a mutual kind of successful business relationship. So I think view marketing as an acquisition engine. We are, and we want to focus on that. We want to make the experience the best as possible to drive the revenue, but it doesn't stay, just with that short-term focus. And I think, if you just focus on the MQL in the short term, you miss all that kind of long, steady brand growth that impacts everything. If people really believe in your brand and they believe in what you're doing and you're growing revenue, you're able to kind of do things better. I think it impacts, recruiting people, it impacts your brand, it impacts your growth, everything that you can do for the long term. It's really great. And obviously for employees as well, it makes them feel really proud to be a part of something. So I think it's really important to kind of look beyond that immediate kind of, have we met our numbers this month? But, is everything going up in the longer term? And are we seeing things like CSAT and NPS measures? Are people actually staying with us? Have we got a good, strong retention? That's just as important, really.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that can be a little bit too narrow, can't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one measure, an important measure, but it's not the only measure. And being too focused on that, I think could actually be quite damaging. We do actually have a question from a caller on the call. And the question we have is, do you think it's important to have a website in today's world, or do we think that a LinkedIn page may suffice? What do you think about that, Carol?
I think for me, I think a website's like one of your most basic things. It's your window to the world. It's the way you talk to your customers. It's, it's something that you own. I think, you absolutely need a LinkedIn page. But you need a website, and it enables you to bring all your traffic in. The focus on kind of SEO, on your adverts coming across, landing pages, delivering experiences, showcasing your product, converting people on your website. I don't see how you can do that with just a LinkedIn page. So I'd definitely invest in your website. When I first started at Skyscanner on the B2B side, the first thing I did was work over the weekend with one of the designers that I bribed to help me, who's a wonderful person and did help me, and we built our first Squarespace website on our own, and connected everything up, put it live, and that started driving, within about 6 months we had a £5 million business line with all the activities that we were running through the B2B side of the business. So the website is almost like the core of everything that you do, I think, for me anyway. Everything's digital these days, and I think you just can't avoid using your website, and then connecting all these amazing fun tools that you can play around with into your website, so you can do lots and lots of cool things in terms of marketing. And obviously that's where I get carried away, and Ailsa has to tell me to slow down and simplify things. I think we both get quite excited by all the fun things you can do and all the opportunities that you can see. It's just finding the time and the resource in the day that enables you to do it. But yeah, I think website is fundamental to everything.
Yeah, no, I would probably second that. I think there are so many things you can do with a website, and even that example you gave there of even just making something small yourself. If you are literally a startup, you've just started the business, even then, even having a one page that you can use, or a simple site, I think there's huge advantages to that. I think there are some business types where you might be able to get away in the first couple of months with a strong social media presence, but I think certainly if you're selling software or or you wanted to grow in the future, there's just huge advantages to having that web presence there from the start. And I think you also you have that data, like you said, Carol. The website itself doesn't need to be hugely expensive, but you immediately can access even free tools that will give you data about how people are actually responding to what you're saying to them, and whether or not you're actually able to convert them to buy the product. And that's kind of vital information for a new start as well. You really need to know all of that stuff. So yeah, I think of all the things you could do, probably a website is just a really, really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's some amazing no-code tools that you can do. I mean, I mentioned Squarespace because it's one that I personally used at the time. I know many people use others, such as Wix and various other designs, but I just found it very easy to go in, put my credit card in, initially test it out, pick some templates. There's actually, I shared it with Ailsa actually this morning, the Emily Kramer from MKT1, which is a fantastic newsletter that I read, religiously, has just put loads of wireframes up saying, this is how you structure your website. This is the best way to drive through a SaaS business. There's so much learning that you can use, but that's available within Squarespace and other non-promotional kind of elements. But that's the one that I've used. But yeah, you can very quickly build it out. You can link your pages. It helps you understand, what your headings are, what H1 is versus H2, why you use it, how you tag your pages, how you structure it, how you really utilize it. There's so much learning you can do online. And I think one question I always ask people when they're in interviews is, what would you do if you were given a tool and you didn't know how to use it? And I always look for people that have that growth mindset, that always say, well, I'll just go on YouTube and I'll learn it and I'll read the documentation, I'll have a go and I'll have a play. And if I get stuck, I'll come and ask, but not, I'm not really sure what to do. It's kind of having that curiosity to go and tinker with things, I think makes a really great marketer.
Yeah, and you need to have the ability to take a risk sometimes as well, and test and learn and see what's actually working, that kind of thing. No, that's a really good point. I'm conscious that we have around 8 minutes left for this webinar. I know, Carol, that you maybe wanted to mention that we had a little promotion for anyone who's joined the webinar around our product, which you might just want to call out to people.
Yeah, definitely. So we're obviously very aware that a number of people that we've worked with and, seeing across the economy that there's lots of people seeing, budgets cut. So we're wanting to offer a discount for anyone today who's interested to kind of come and try out Exclaimer. We have a lot of free trials. We've got free demos, so you can see if it's relevant for you. But we're offering 20% off for anyone that's obviously been on our webinar today, that's watched it. If you go through, submit an inquiry, contact one of us. We're always available, LinkedIn, Twitter, any named social media network. But if you want to come through and just quote that you're watching the webinar with us today, we'll kind of honor that discount and offer that to people. So it'd be really good, and really good if you do quote it, that we could actually attribute that to a webinar, which will be exciting for us.
That would be exciting for us. We would like that. Yeah. Please help us with that. Yeah, and we'll also make sure that there's a reference to that in the email we'll send out to everyone who joins.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that you can have reference there. And I'm wondering whether it might be a good idea for us to just recap on some of the things that we've said today about the strategies that you can employ. Obviously, we've got that up there on the slide there. I don't know whether there's anything else we want to touch on. I think probably what some of the main things that Carol has said today is just how powerful personalization can be in your marketing, just helping you to connect to audiences, and also how important it is to really put the customer right at the heart of the business. That point we made right up front there, so that they really feel known and that they feel cared for by your brand, that that they can trust your brand, that your brand is the brand for them. I don't know whether there's anything else you want to call out, Carol, about these particular strategies, just as some takeaways for anybody who's on the call.
Yeah, no, I think it really is, as Ailsa said, one of the biggest things is having kind of that backbone of data analytics and your operations sorted. It's one thing I think that we necessarily didn't do initially, and we kind of had to start building foundations on a sort of slightly rocky foundation. So I think that data and analytics piece is really important, and setting up your team really, really well, and making sure that you have that content engine to strengthen that brand, and really diversifying your opportunities, because just relying on one doesn't work. And I think for me, definitely relying on those free activities, that network effect, doing everything you can to kind of be really, really present to increase your share of voice, whether it's through your employees or through the work you can do through posting on other blogs, and kind of managing things like communities. I think there are so many free opportunities you can do in addition to the paid ones. If you're lucky enough to have budget to spend on them, there's obviously some fantastic things, but there is an awful lot you can do creatively across different activities.
Yeah, and I think it's important to think, when you're thinking about paid activity, that it's always amplified by the organic work you're doing and by the content work you're doing. It's that kind of that how many times your brand can run across somebody's eyeballs over a period of time really counts towards them coming towards you. I'm conscious that today we've actually mentioned the dark funnel a couple of times. I don't know about everybody on the call, but certainly dark funnel was a new term to me, and it's a really, really interesting concept in marketing. And we're actually running a webinar in a couple of weeks' time, which I think probably many of the people on the call would really enjoy, which is really digging into what the dark funnel is, how you can use it. We've got a couple of expert speakers coming onto that call as well, who'll be able to really explain the whole concept to you and how you can take advantage of it. So please do keep an eye on our website or on our social feeds, and we'll be promoting that over the next few weeks. And just come along and sign up. It's free again, so really easy to take part in. So hopefully some of you can come along and see us there. And anything else we'd like to touch on before we tie up for today?
No, I think the main thing for me is I'm a massive advocate of growth and of learning and sharing things. I think it's really important. And I think something in marketing we've not done in history really before was kind of share successes, share failures, give each other hints and tips. And there's been so much more of that recently, which I've been really pleased to see. But, if anyone does get value from this or has any ideas, I'm always really keen to kind of hear ideas or to talk through things. So we'd love to know if anyone does apply these, or similarly has already done this and seen it working or not working. We'd really love kind of that feedback. And, if you want to tag us on LinkedIn or something, that'd be amazing just to sort of hear some of that. So yeah, that'd be my main thing.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I'd love to hear any feedback that anybody has. That'd be really, really interesting, or additional experiences that you can add. That would be great. Okay, I think that is us for today. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined. We really appreciate you joining the call. And yeah, why not link up with us on LinkedIn if you'd like to chat at all. And please do join our Dark Social webinar in a couple of weeks' time. We'd love to see you there too. Okay, bye everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.